5, 4. Welcome to another episode of Talking Kotlin. I am your co-host, Hadi, with my other co-host.
Yeah, Seb, that's me. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you again, or hear you, or whatever.
Well, I can see you, Seb. Can you see me?
I could see you if I wasn't looking straight into the camera.
Oh, I'm looking straight at the camera. Here's looking at you. Huh?
Oh.
Anyway, how are you doing, Seb?
I'm good. The weather is nice. You know, it's a good time. If I wasn't recording this, I'd probably be working from the balcony. So yeah, no, things are great. How's everything with you?
It's that 1 week in Germany where you have nice weather, right?
Yeah, but right now it's ideal, right? I would call it beer garden weather because it's a little bit above room temperature. There's a couple of clouds, so you know you don't have the direct sunlight. Very comfortable and just give me this intrinsic motivation to go and grab a beer.
Yeah, I remember the last time I was in Munich, we went to a beer garden and I ended up ordering some salad it wasn't my taste kind of thing. It was some salad that had a lot of mayonnaise and chunks of butter in it or something like that.
That
and
sounds very Bavarian.
Yeah, it was, did not like that. Anyway, today we are not talking about beer gardens, are we?
No, today
we are talking about the weather. We always talk about the weather.
We're always talking about
Anywhere
the weather.
you go, always take the weather. We always talk about the weather with you. There you go. Talking weather. And on the side, we'll do some Kotlin. Who is our guest today?
Yeah, so more importantly, we are talking about Kotlin in education today, and we have Ksenia Schneeweiss with us today, who's the Kotlin manager for education and university relations at JetBrains. That's one mouthful of a name. Hello, Ksenia.
Hi. Hello, Seb. Hello, Hadi. It's great to be here.
Yeah.
Can you pronounce the surname again? I didn't quite get that.
Me, Schneeweiss.
No, again.
Schneeweiss. I mean Snow White in German. So, Ksenia, welcome to the show. And how about you give us a little bit of an overview at what's kind of happening in the education sphere with Kotlin and what we're doing in the education sphere with Kotlin in particular?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for this really nice introduction and translating my last name too. So, yeah, I'm a Kotlin manager for education and university relations. I started about 1.5 years ago. And my goal is to make Kotlin more popular in academia. So when I first started, we didn't know how much Kotlin was already adopted in the industry, where to start from, what educational segment to look at. And we decided to focus on the universities first. So I looked at about 1,500 universities from the Times Higher Education rankings to see which of these universities already teach Kotlin and to connect with the educators to learn about their reasons for why they choose the language. And that's where I found about 100 Kotlin courses taught, connected to the educators, and talked about the reasons why they chose the language. And now I'm trying to spread this knowledge to other educators so that they adopt the language.
800, that's quite a bit.
It was 100. 100.
Oh, it was 100. Sorry,
100 from the 1,500 in the rankings. So I used the Times Higher Education annual rankings as sort of a database, and I manually looked through their websites to search for this Kotlin word. And to find the exact courses. And luckily, a lot of the information is there available. So I could see syllabi, I could see contacts of the educators, and I reached out to them and I met them and asked them why they chose Kotlin.
That's a lot of work. Kudos for doing that.
Thanks. Yeah, and actually this year I also looked at the new rankings, and these numbers, they almost doubled. We now know of 190 Kotlin courses taught globally.
Well, whatever you're doing, it's working.
I know. And what's more important is like you can actually measure it. It's like, the rest of us have been spending 15, 20 years trying to figure out how we can measure the impact of our work. And here you are actually seeing double results. Well done. Well done.
Thanks. Yeah, and the cool thing is that a quarter of the top 100 universities in that ranking is already using Kotlin. So it includes Stanford, Cambridge, Imperial College London, University of Chicago, and many other great schools. They are already adopting Kotlin.
Yeah, Imperial College London brings back good memories for me. I remember going there many years ago to, I think it was Robert, right? Robert, yeah. I believe I was speaking to. And it's interesting fact that maybe people might not know that the first language that they teach at Imperial College London is no other than Haskell. Haskell.
It's now together with Kotlin. The course is actually combining both languages, Haskell and Kotlin.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Yeah, because back then they was first teaching Haskell and then they were teaching Java the second year. It's like, look what it could be. Now let's look what the industry is. And so now you're saying that they're doing Haskell and Kotlin.
Yeah, in the introductory programming course.
Wow, that's awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah, I guess that really shows that that Kotlin has something to offer. If even like the folks who are set on introducing people with Haskell choose to add it to their syllabus. So, but kind of let's maybe take one step back. It's awesome to see that there's already all these places adopting Kotlin, but what is the main motivation for you and for the team to bring Kotlin into more education places?
We think that it is a great language for education, and it's being adopted by the industry a lot. We see Kotlin job demand growing, and this demand in turn shapes the curricula of the universities. So that's a place for Kotlin to be. And I've actually come across professors who look at the languages that local employers use for their job interviews, and they actually try to integrate these into their curriculum. So we know that Kotlin is already academically recognized. We know of the top schools that are teaching the language, and now we know, of course, that Kotlin is adopted in the industry, and this is something that influences the prospective careers of the students. So, and students are motivated to learn something that they'll use later and actually apply it. And I see that Kotlin is used a lot where there is this direct collaboration between industry and academia, for example, for capstone projects where students build software in Kotlin for their local or even global businesses, and that's their final project.
And that's so true, because there's nothing more demotivating than studying something that you're never going to use, right? I mean, I'm still wishing that day will come that I get to use Prolog and Ada and all of those other awesome languages that I learned at university that never get to use in the real world.
Right, yeah. So students, from the survey that I had of the educators that taught the students were really motivated about learning Kotlin.
So can you maybe explain a little bit about where that motivation comes from as well? Is it because students were exposed to the language beforehand somehow, and they petitioned their educators and professors to teach this language to them more? Or was it more of a situation of they felt more productive or just like the experience?
Yeah, and this also connects to the general factors. I looked at some research about why educators choose certain programming languages to teach. And so the one factor is adoption in the industry, academic recognition, then the ease to convey fundamental programming concepts in a language. And Kotlin is considered to be such a language. And then also educators can explain different programming paradigms in Kotlin, so they can teach object-oriented, functional, procedural, imperative programming with Kotlin, and students don't need to focus on learning different syntax. They can focus on learning the concepts, and that's also a factor that contributes to it. Then Java interop. Kotlin is interoperable with Java, which means that the wealth of Java libraries can still be used in the courses. And educators often who are willing to transform their courses from Java to Kotlin, they find that their code shrinks twice, and then since there is less code, it's more expressive, more things can be done with less code, and it's less prone to error. Less mistakes are made by the newbies, for example, and then we also have this Java to Kotlin converter tool that allows educators to translate their code from Java to Kotlin quickly. And the expressiveness and conciseness of the code are probably the favorite features of Kotlin educators, and safety, which is also important for the newbies. And then the tooling that JetBrains provides for the language, we provide free educational licenses to all of our development tools, and educators and students can use IntelliJ IDEA for Kotlin, and that's the tool they're going to use later in their profession, and they can use it for free. We have educational tools plugin that allows educators create the courses and students solve these assignments right inside the IDE, which is also pretty cool. And what else? I know that we have recently launched this Code With Me initiative, a really neat tool for remote learning, I think. When an educator can do collaborative programming with their students right inside an IDE project together. And I think that's a great perk of the language that comes from JetBrains.
Yeah, I think we need to put the little this segment was brought to you by JetBrains.
It really seems like, I mean, while we're already at the topic of advertising, let me actually take this opportunity to advertise something here myself. A bunch of these points that Ksenia actually just made, we also covered in a bit more depth, and also with a bunch of code samples and stuff in our webinar, Kotlin for Education, which I hosted together with Ksenia a while ago, and which you can find on our YouTube channel. So if you are watching us, you can find that probably in the recommended or the description. And if you're anywhere else, you can go to youtube.com/Kotlin and find that there.
Have you found that educators actually take a liking to Kotlin because they feel at some point that it's a little bit simpler of a language to teach concepts as opposed to just teaching a programming language? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, you know, if you're using Kotlin as a first language to teach the concept of programming, do they see this as a good fit?
I would say that they've just launched these courses this year, and I haven't actually received the feedback. They are looking at how it goes, but in general, there are several educators who have already taught Kotlin as an introductory language, and they feel that that's the right fit for being the introductory language, the first language, for example, that combines type safety and the expressiveness of the other languages.
When you approach educators, how much convincing would you say it takes to get someone to actually at least evaluate Kotlin for their courses? Because I can actually I can tell a small story from my side before you answer this question. So when I was at the Technical University of Munich, I was constantly pestering one of my professors whether we could maybe move one of their courses from Java to Kotlin. And
now you're just pestering me. I'm joking.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah, true. Always.
I love you, Seb.
Yeah, likewise.
That was convincing.
You have completely derailed my train of thought. Yeah. So I was regularly pestering one of my professors whether we could move one of the software engineering courses we had, patterns in software engineering, to Kotlin, because I felt it would be a good fit. And at some point, the professor said, like, okay, we've like looked at the technology and it seems really great, and we want to move it. And I mean, of course, the best part was, I mean, he didn't have to move it. He had like PhD students for him to move it, right? So I'm just wondering how much involvement is usually required, and how much convincing is usually required to get these busy educators on board with Kotlin.
So yeah, the course you're talking about, I know about the course, and they actually did switch it to Kotlin at some point, and then unfortunately during the pandemic times they had to cut Kotlin out of the course, but hopefully they'll restart when things get back to normal. As for convincing, there are some different pathways for the language to appear in the course. Some educators look at it. Of course, there is a natural way for Android application development courses to adopt Kotlin, but still not all of these educators have adopted Kotlin. I still see people using Java for Android development in their courses, and this is one of the target audiences. And sometimes it happens, like you mentioned, Seb, there are PhD students or teaching assistants who already know the language. They've come across Kotlin somewhere in their lives or profession, and then that's where they try to convince the professors who've been teaching, for example, a Java class for 10 years to add this. And this is one of the ways Kotlin gets into the curriculum too. The educators that I talk to are at different points of their decision-making funnel, and it's usually a very long funnel, about a year from their intention to actually implementing to launching the course, because it involves sometimes it's actually a decision of an educator, a personal decision of an educator. Usually that's the main factor. But then they still have to integrate it into the entire curriculum of the discipline. Sometimes some really interesting factors also are considered. For example, I've talked to educators who are looking at the ability of the language to support gender diversity in STEM disciplines. And there are some studies that show that some languages attract and retain women into computer science subjects better than others. And for us in Kotlin, we are now involved with an initiative of Amrita University, who are motivating schoolgirls to pursue their education and career in programming.
What are your primary challenges when you go to folks and say, are you interested in adopting Kotlin, or what are your experiences with, experiences with Kotlin? I guess you don't have a lot of challenges, right? They'll just tell you, but as part of your job to increase adoption in the educational sphere, what are your main challenges?
Well, the main challenge is to actually get the educator interested and to actually get their response, because some of the times I just send cold emails to the educators that I found on a website of the universities, and I think that their course, that Kotlin might be a good fit for their course. So, and sometimes it takes months for an educator to reply. And that's the first challenge I encounter. And then if there is this initial interest, it goes much smoother. And there are the factors and the questions that they ask about, like I mentioned, the adoption of the language for women, for example, or some information that we just don't possess. And that's something that I have to look up further, and we have to think for the future how to provide this information for them to make this decision. Some of the educators at the beginning of my communication with them, I felt that they did not consider Kotlin a language mature enough for the academic industry. And of course, by then it was about 5 years after the public release or something. So they were afraid to introduce something that might disappear in 5 years. And that's something that I have to convince, that Kotlin is there to stay. It's not going anywhere. It's adopted. It's backed by large companies. Yeah.
it's interesting that you say that, kind of establishing first contact, right, with the alien life forms. No, with educators is, oh my god, it's a Yoda.
You said alien life form.
Yeah, I mean, you had that one ready to go. I think this is actually something that I can very much corroborate, because when I was trying to get folks to adopt Kotlin at my university, at some point I literally camped outside some of the lecture halls and tried to give my pitch of the language to the professor from the time he walked from the lecture hall to his office, because I knew that the moment he entered his office, I would have to go through his secretary, and his secretary, whenever I asked her, she would say like, yeah, like come back in 4 weeks because he's booked out for the next 3 months. So educators are like really busy. So I'm not doubting it at all that you have to wait multiple months to get like email responses from them.
Yeah.
Wow, you really were like, I mean, you must have been really loved at that university.
I mean, you know, you do what you got to do.
Yeah, that was sarcasm for the record. But anyway, Ksenia, I have another question for you. I mean, you talk about emails and how it's been kind of difficult to get responses, right? But you've also kind of been involved in another activity which is related, which is ICPC, yes? And ICPC, for folks that don't know, can you give a quick, brief summary of what ICPC is?
Sure. Yeah. So just going back a few steps, emails aren't the only form of contact I have with the educators. And there are actually different sources of how educators find out about Kotlin and how they reach out. And initially, of course, I was hoping for some educational conferences where I could meet them in person. But since I started at the end of 2019, that wasn't possible. But as for the ICPC, we managed, actually, Sebastian and I, we managed to visit one offline event that the ICPC held in 2019, where
the last one.
So the ICPC is a programming Olympics, so-called. It's the International Collegiate Programming Contest that unites, I think it's over 9,000 universities, and they hold events globally, hundreds of the events each year for the students, the ones who want to compete in programming. And so usually these are the top computer science students, the top programmers of the world who compete there. And JetBrains is the global tooling sponsor for this, for the ICPC. And we provide tooling support there. And Kotlin is one of the official ICPC languages. It's used in the finals of this contest too by the top programmers of the world. And that's another source of where we get the perspective and existing Kotlin educators from. They are actually introducing us to the educators that are in the ICPC community, and they're usually computer science professors.
Yeah, and this is the reason I was asking, right? Because precisely for that fact that when you joined, it was right before the pandemic, and you did have, you know, always meeting professors in person, especially at ICPC. It's always easier, right, to engage in a conversation, and just like Seb says, you know, before they run away, you capture them, and you're like, oh, let me sell you Kotlin. So, you know, now it's got to be a little bit more difficult, as you said, right? Like additional challenges. So I think kudos to you for having doubled even the number despite the challenges.
Thanks. And actually, it's also thanks to the great efforts that Google is doing in terms of Google, in terms of
Never heard of them.
Never heard of them.
What?
Is that something that we'll need
Is
to...
that something related to Android?
Yeah. So
oh, you can use Kotlin for Android? Oh, I didn't know that. Seb, did you know that?
Oh, really? I thought it was like a server-side and mostly JavaScript targeting language.
But that's actually a factor that universities look at. It is the language of Android, and it is a multi-platform language, and there are Kotlin-based software development courses where Kotlin is used to teach cross-platform mobile development, web server-side development too. But for Android, Google is doing some tremendous work. For example, during the last year, they conducted train-the-trainer sessions in India, where they educated people from 35 Indian universities in Android and Kotlin. And now all of these universities are going to adopt it in their curriculum. So that's how it grows. And speaking about the difficulties of the pandemic and the conferences that I was hoping for, once we had a very interesting conference with our country manager for Japan, Masaru, and it was organized by ICPC with Japanese universities, Japanese coaches of the teams and the teams. And we participated in the virtual conferences in the shape represented by pixelated avatars of Nintendo characters, Super Mario and the Princess. And we had this cartoonish booth, JetBrains booth, next to Google and IBM cartoonish booths, where we were talking to educators there, actually.
Oh wow. I guess those are the only ways we can try to emulate. I mean, what's next? Like virtual reality, maybe. I'm actually quite excited that we are like continuing our collaboration with ICPC, because they also kind of go way back with JetBrains, right? I think Roman Yelizarov, who's now language lead, right? He was also or I'm not sure if he still is, but he was a chief judge for ICPC as well, right? And I think some of the other folks at JetBrains, you can find a lot of programming Olympiad people.
Right.
With our teams as well.
Right, and we also have our own Kotlin-only coding contest. It's not only for the masterminds or not only for the students, but anyone can take part in our Kotlin Heroes contest. And that's a great way to learn the language, to learn the powerful features of the language by solving interesting tasks that are actually designed to fit anyone of any programming language, and the complexity is increasing there, but everyone who participates has a chance to win some prizes even. And if someone is looking for a way to get some Kotlin swag, that's a cool way to do so.
All right. So if you're enjoying some puzzle solving and also want to hone your Kotlin skills a little bit more, I guess this is the place to go, huh? So I think we're out of time for this episode, but before we wrap up, so we've already heard of Kotlin Heroes now. Are there any other places that you want to shout out? Maybe if someone is interested to learn more about how Kotlin is used in education, but also maybe if someone is an educator and after this very convincing argument that we've had here, they are now thinking about adopting Kotlin. Where do they go?
Yeah, please check out our page. That's accumulation of all the resources for educators. It's kotlinlang.org/education. There you'll find links to, for example, an interactive map with the links to the websites of the universities that already teach Kotlin. And some of these links lead to a very detailed description of the courses, sometimes even the slides, video lectures. And that's something that you can use for reference if you're thinking of launching your own Kotlin course. And we have a Slack channel for educators on our Kotlin Lang Slack workspace, where there are about 270 participants right now. Please join this group. Educators exchange their experiences, ask their questions, and we're there to share our news and help you with the questions on your journey of teaching Kotlin or thinking about introducing it in your institutions. And also on this YouTube channel, we hold monthly webinars for educators and by educators. And the latest one was by Sebastian, this all-encompassing webinar about how to teach Kotlin, how to start, a great overview of everything Kotlin in academia related.
And any webinar is a SEP webinar. It's not even a webinar anymore. It's a sebinar.
Yeah. It's a real show. It's, you know, that is high class entertainment right there, and you also get to learn something.
Sebinar. You'll learn, you will. Do I do a good Yoda voice? No, never mind.
You gotta go like more raspy. I feel like.
Now I sound like Darth Vader.
I apologize for whoever had to listen to that in their car stereo, and now the person next to them is looking really weird at them.
Ksenia, thank you for coming to the show.
You're a great company, Harry, Sebastian. That was fun.
And for everyone else, thank you for tuning in, listening. And guess what? I do not have a bell, but I've got some keys.
Well, I think that's a great stand-in. What does that stand for, though, Hadi? I think it's all about.
It means hit the subscribe button, hit the like, get the
Jingle
notification
the
bell, jingle the keys, get the notification bell, leave a comment. I know that Seb is, I'm not saying this for me, I mean it, but Seb is constantly refreshing that screen to see if he gets any new comments on the YouTube episodes. So please engage with Seb and leave some comments for him. Tell him that you love it, but also tell him that there is no Talking Kotlin without
Hadi? I don't know. Are you?
No, that's not what I was thinking. Anyway, never mind. Everyone, bye everyone.
Take care, everyone. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.